me introduce David. I think David should actually introduce himself, talk a little bit about who you are, and I guess your credentials, which are better than my credentials, by the way. And then just tell us, and then it's from here. Tell us what you're going to be talking about. David.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Well, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first, let me just say it's really exciting to be here. Paul has been a good friend for about 20 years, and I've followed the growth of Learning Life, and I'm amazed by what he's doing, and but finally to be able to participate and to be in touch with people around the world is really exciting and amazing. Um, so yeah, let me just say a little bit something about myself. So I got a PhD, a doctorate in history. I wrote a dissertation on some aspect of German economic history, and that was about 20 years ago. But since then, especially in my teaching, I've had to sort of become much broader. I teach courses on globalization fairly often. I teach world history every year, so I've really had to learn at least something about many parts of the world. Um, and let's see. So, Paul, should I say anything else, or
Yeah. So
maybe about where I'm teaching now?
Where you're
Yeah.
teaching? Where did you get your degrees? Where are you teaching, and so on?
Sure. Yeah. So I got my PhD at Harvard, and I was teaching there for a while. That's where I met Paul. And then after that, I taught at a couple of other colleges, universities, one in Colorado, one in New York State. Unfortunately, the one in New York State, there are quite a few colleges in the United States that aren't doing so well financially, and so that college actually went bankrupt and closed. So I am now teaching at what's called a high school early college. So it's high school age kids, 14 to 18, but they are selected. They are particularly good students, and they get quite a bit of college credit because my school is affiliated with a college called Bard College, and so they graduate with a year or even 2 years of college credit, and we're supposed to be sort of teaching them as if they were older students. So yeah, and I should say I teach at my high school is in Queens, part of New York City, that is the most diverse part of New York City. I mean, New York City itself is very diverse, but Queens especially. And so my high school has children of immigrants or immigrants from many of the places where all are living. So that's been a very interesting part of teaching at this school. All right. So yeah. So I guess I have about an hour today, and then maybe 30 minutes or so next week. And so I wanted to give an introduction to globalization. We'll talk about what that.
Talk it silly.
Oh, sorry. Sammy
Yeah. So we'll even in a second I'll ask you what your sense of the meaning of globalization is. What do we even mean by that? But yeah, we'll talk about what globalization is, why it's been happening, what some benefits and problems of globalization are. Since I don't know you, I'm not sure whether my presentation will be, pitched will be too simple for you, or too challenging, or just right. But hopefully it'll be interesting much of the time. All right, so let me just, Paul, can I share my screen?
Yes, you should be able to share the screen now. You should be able to share the screen now. And while you're trying to figure that out, actually, before you share your screen, I'd like to just remember I need to take photos of everybody or screenshots. So before you do that, if you guys could turn on your and you guys are well trained. Looks like everybody's pretty much turning on their videos. Mulba and Sammy, if you guys are paying attention, if you can turn on your videos, I need to take photos of each of you. It's good to see you guys. On three, if you could smile. 1, 2, 3, smile. And then let me just take another photo here on 3. Hold on a second. 1, 2, 3, smile. Fantastic. Okay, go ahead, David.
Okay, so I'll try to share my screen. Oh, well, here it says one participant. Wait a second.
Oh, it's don't worry about the people. Yeah,
can you see this now?
Yes.
All right, hold on a second. Let me just let me just try to get the I have this black bar up here that I can't seem to get rid of. Wait a second.
Oh, that's probably you can move it. Unfortunately, it's a bar that's allowing you to.
Yeah, you're right, Paul. Good. Okay, great. That worked. All right, so let me move the black bar up again. All right, so okay, yeah, so there's the name of my school. All right, so let's oops, sorry. All right, so yeah, does anybody want to share what if you hear the word globalization, what do you understand by that? And Paul, maybe oh, I guess I can big one.
Globalization, I mean, a number of things. First, a removal of the borders, so the borders become less important. The world become more interconnected and interdependent. That's through the interdependence of businesses, trade transactions, economic transactions. Okay. And also another factor is technology. The technological connections, social media make the world like a single, like a small village. So I can say that in the globalized world, people and countries, states, non-state units like NGOs, organizations are more interconnected. Also, the threats and problems like the pandemic or an economic crisis can affect not only one corner of the country, but the whole globe, let's say. And also, one other thing, the uneven nature of globalization. So what I mean from this is that there is an uneven development, north and south division. So some countries, the Western countries, are developed and rich, while the other parts are poor. So there's an unfair distribution of the resources also. So it has many dimensions. We can define it, in a single way, maybe, but in terms of its effects and the consequences and how it functions, it's different. It is different from country to country. And finally, it is not something that we can escape. So it is an unescapable reality of contemporary world. And I think in the late 1970s it has begun, and more than 5 decades we have been going through a globalization wave. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, very interesting, and I'll say more about that. But Leroy, do you want to give your understanding?
Yeah, globalization, I think, in my own understanding, it has to do with worldwide. That is connecting the content or coming from all part of the world, coming together for one single goal. That's just my little understanding of globalization.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, both of you. Oh, and then we have Sami.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, I would just want to say, like, I want to add something. Globalization basically is refer when the invention of internet, like when when internet came into being into this and get popularity. So at that sense, like the whole world is just like a global village, and now everyone is just one click of a mouse. We can connect with anyone. So yeah.
So this learning life right now, or family diplomacy, is an example of globalization.
Yeah, it's a very efficient example of globalization.
Okay. All right. I thought those were all very interesting and helpful explanations. So I think, as Begum, as you said, I think that there are probably many aspects that fall or could fall under globalization. From communication, culture. I don't know in how many of your countries now everybody is talking about the movie Barbie. That I don't know if that's even a concept, so communication, culture, of course, economic interactions, which is what I'm going to focus on, disease, pandemics. So there are potentially many aspects that reflect this idea that sort of the world is becoming smaller. Begum, you said that maybe borders are becoming less important. I'll say sort of toward the end of my presentation, so it might actually be next week, that borders actually still do matter, and that there's an important sort of mismatch between global, worldwide economic connections on the one hand, and the persistence of politics at the national level. Those two things don't match up always smoothly. Oops, I always skipped ahead here. Sorry, somebody wanted to be let in. So let me say one thing. We can go into this maybe later if there's time for questions. So some of you, two of you, Begum and Sami, I think both of you said that you thought globalization had started. I think Sami, you said maybe with the internet. Begum, I think you said in the last few decades. I think it's true that globalization has accelerated in the last few decades. Now certainly, yes, with the click of a mouse, we can talk about a global village. Interestingly, in a number of ways, a little bit more than 100 years ago, so in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the world was also very interconnected. Obviously didn't have internet, we didn't have international telephones, things like that. But in terms of economic connectedness, the world was very, very connected, starting with World War I, about 100 years ago, and into the interwar years. In some ways, the world economy became less connected. There were a lot of wars. And so what we're seeing in the last 4 or 5 decades is a return to something like about a century ago. We can get into more of that. Sami, I saw your hand up. Oh, okay, maybe not. So I will. I completely agree with what Begum said about there being multiple.
Hello.
Oh yeah. Was that somebody?
Go ahead, Sami.
Yeah, it was me, but I think there's a problem of connection. So that's the problem.
Okay. So I completely agree with Begum's point that one can discuss globalization in a broader sense or a somewhat narrower sense. Today, I'm going to talk about it in a somewhat narrower sense, but I'm always happy to if you have questions or ideas about sort of the broader version of globalization. So I'm going to, let me just put it up here. Yeah, I'm going to use a working definition. I'm going to say by globalization, I mean the growth of international, I have that hyphen in there, to suggest it's economic exchanges that cross borders, right? And there are different kinds of economic exchanges. Like what if we just focusing on that economic aspect of globalization, yeah, what are some examples that you maybe see around you or hear about?
It'd be great to hear from others among you. So Mo, Chia, Mulba, Joshua is just joining us from, I can't remember where, I think it's Ghana. Abdul, Zineng. Examples of globalization in your own lives is what David is asking for.
Any ideas? Yeah, Begum?
In terms of the economic aspect, we can purchase anything online. Like Amazon, for example, we can buy a book from another country.
Okay.
We can order any stuff from any part of the world.
Okay. Great example. You can purchase things from anywhere in the world, and Amazon is an example, of course, of a single company that spans the world. There are others, but that's a great example. Zineng?
I think myself is a very good example of globalization because I'm a Chinese based. I'm currently studying in Canada.
Okay.
So I can speak Japanese, so I often communicate with Japanese people.
Okay.
I live in a mixed cultural background in my daily life, and because of my language and complexity, and in my daily life, I have to speak 3 languages.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big challenge at first, but I'm currently I'm I'm getting used to it.
Okay, great. Let's maybe just go for a couple of people that we haven't heard from before. Mohammed or Mo, Chia, and then Leroy.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. Well, a great example of globalization that we have currently just like right now we are interacting with each other. That is internet, which is the great way that connected the world, and we can see even although we haven't experienced these things in the like a century ago, we didn't have this kind of things. Like we were unable to talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That was very difficult, but right now it's very easy. Yeah, it's very easy. Okay. And also another example is languages. I mean, these are also the possible ways that can connect us easily. Right now we can use English and we can understand each other. So that's somehow, I think, an example.
Okay, great. Chia?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm Shortterm from Cameroon, presently in UAE. So when we talk of globalization, I understand interconnectivity, information and services. All this lead to the internet we are having today because we offer services through this internet and interconnection only by the internet. So I think when you talk about globalization without the internet we are using, we are missing out something. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Leroy, and then Sami again. Sami?
Yeah. So globalization, the perfect example is smart air when it comes to the discussing it as it relates to economics. Smart Air is an American organization that is solely into internet business. That is, invest and transact on the app, and after some time you cash out the more you invest into their activity, the more you gain money from their transaction. And that is actually helping people in my country currently, helping a lot of young guys in my country that were jobless. So globalization, relating it to economics, I think this is the perfect example when it comes to my country.
I missed. It was just a little hard for me to understand. What was the organization, or what were these young guys doing?
Smart Earth. There were a lot of young guys in my country in Liberia that were not employed, that some of them had degree but were struggling to get even their daily meal. So the introduction of Smart Earth in Liberia had actually helped most of them to even sit at home and make money through the internet. Through the internet, yeah.
Okay, Sammy.
Okay, so well, I just want to say, basically, I have a comment on your previous sentence, sir. You have told us that like globalization, the world was more globalized than now, right? But I would say like I have a bit disagreement with respect, and that is like today we are more connected with the world, and that is like if you see we are physically aparted, but we are like socially connected through social media, through other mediums of communication. So today we are more connected than ever before. Like, but if you are saying in economic sense, then yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Because like
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't disagree with you at all. In some ways, clearly, communication, we are more connected, more globalized than ever before. No doubt about it. Just what I meant was by some measures. So, for example, by the share of how much countries were trading with each other as a share of their total economic activity, that was not higher than it is today. But let's say in 1900, that was higher than it was in 1950. So it was high, it went down, and then it's gone up again, and it's gone a little bit higher. Or if you look at the percentage of people who were born in another country, like in the United States, in 1900, that was high, that went down over the course of the century, and then it's been going up again. So there's kind of this dip. So in some ways, the world a century or so ago was as globalized as today. Not in all ways. You're absolutely right. All right, let me just to move on here. Let me just talk about a few different aspects of economic globalization, which have already come up in your comments. So one, the thing that I think first comes to people's minds is trade of goods and services. Goods are basically tangible objects, things, clothing, oil, smartphones, et cetera, et cetera. But services can also be traded. For example, just one example, in the United States, if you purchase some appliance, like let's say a refrigerator, and if there's then some problem with the appliance, and you call the number on the side of the refrigerator, you might get a call, you might reach somebody who's in a call center, who's in the Philippines or in India or somewhere else. So those are people who are providing some kind of service, and the service is, of course, crossing borders. So trade of goods and services. What I do in my class when I teach this globalization course is I ask people if they know where their shirts were made. Clothing, textiles was the first item, or the first product that was produced in the Industrial Revolution, and it's still a very large part of the economy. And at least in the United States, labels always say where shirts and probably other clothes were made. And it's just interesting to hear, the different countries where clothes were made. Or if you take something like a smartphone, anybody know where your, I don't know, if you have an iPhone or if you have a an Android or whatever, where do you think it was made?
China, some parts.
Okay, who's that was Begum who said that.
Yeah.
Let's go Zineng and then Sammy.
Well, it's used to be made in China, but currently because of the increased price of labor in China, it's gradually moved to other places, other countries, Sweden and the other developing countries. However, they just made it just like to unpack them together instead of them manufacturing them, because the the blind, like I mean like the picture and the manufacture and the other help that's offered to you and the technology that is offered is not from developing countries, is from developing countries like the US or from the Europe. So it can be like a sort of I mean, sorry to my poor memory, I forget that word, but it can be a new colonization to some extent.
Okay, interesting. Sammy and then Bilal. Sammy?
Yeah. So it basically mobile phone has a very huge history. Like, and the first start, it was just in 1979. So like a cellular network 1G analog, which was launched in Japan. But then the inventors were Martin Cooper and Eric Tigerstedt. So Martin Cooper was basically an American. So yeah, there's a huge history of mobile phone.
Okay. Bilal? Bilal, are you there? Okay. Well, I think in a way the question is a trick question, because the smartphone, at least the iPhone, and probably also the the other kinds. It looks like Bilal.
Yeah, Bilal is having perpetual internet.
Okay. So like the iPhone at least is produced from either from materials or with the labor in about 40 countries. So I think this is a little bit what Zineng was saying. The final putting it together might happen in China or now in Vietnam or India or somewhere else, but there are many, many components that come together to make your iPhone. Including the design, which is it's probably designed in California somewhere. Anyway, so even in things that seem like they're one product, there may be many, many different contributions coming together. Okay, so we have goods and services. Sorry. A part of a side of globalization that is less visible, but is enormously important, is investment, the flow of money or capital, in a sense, across borders. That's not something that we see the way we see a shirt or the way we see a smartphone, but it is hugely important. And let me make a distinction here. So between short-term and long-term investments, and we'll come back to the why that distinction is so important. Long-term investments might be like building a factory or a warehouse. Let's say if Amazon builds a warehouse in Turkey or in Germany or wherever, that is a long-term investment that Amazon is making in that warehouse, or a company is making in a factory. Short-term investments are lending, making short-term loans. I mean, of course, loans themselves can be longer term or short-term, but short-term loans can be investing in foreign stock markets, right? Which of course individuals can now do online. So the flows of capital or money. And then the third category, which Zineng touched on by his own example, is migration. And here too, we have short-term migration, which could be either seasonal workers or students, or it could be long-term, right, where you are moving to a country and planning to stay there long-term. Okay. So let me just move on to the next slide. All right. This is we're gonna have another little discussion. So the way I phrase this, I said from your vantage point or from your perspective, based on what you see either in your own life or what you've experienced in your own life or what you see in your community or in your country, or if you like to think globally, do you think globalization is a good thing or a bad thing? Or does it have more positive consequences or more negative consequences? Leroy and then Sammy.
Yeah, for me, in my country, Liberia, I think globalization is both good and bad.
Okay.
For good, at least 60% good, 40% bad. That is, the invention of internet had made most of our girls in Liberia to lose their value. So because of that, I think globalization is really, really bad in that sense.
Okay.
But when it comes to the connectivity and the investment aspect, migration, and the purchasing of goods online, I think it is much, much better in that sense in my country.
Okay. And just to get, so the first thing you said was that the effect on girls in your country, you said it led them to lose their values or did I understand you?
Yeah, yes, exactly what I said. And I can explain in detail if you wish.
Okay, yeah, we can come back, or why don't we let's just hear from other people and then we can possibly come back to that. Sammy and then Chia, Nusrat, Bilal.
Sammy first.
Okay. Well, sir, for me and for my country, Pakistan, globalization, like every in each aspect of any idea, anything has its advantages and disadvantages. But in fact, this is true. Like globalizations, for me, especially for me, it connected me with the outer world and gave me a lot of opportunities, like to even to connect with the international mountaineers, as I love mountaineering and working as a journalist. So to connect with international journalists. So this is all with the help of globalization. Like now we are very much connected, but like the bad impact is like we are physically disconnected with the society we are living. Like with a friend who is living just behind at my home. I'm connected through online, but not just meeting and just going throughout on the road and talking with each other like that. So yeah, physically we are disconnected, but online we are totally connected with international world too.
Okay, very interesting point. There's an author that I like called Sherry Turkle has written a book sort of about phone technology, and the title of the book is Alone Together. So she talks about groups of people who are maybe sitting in the same space, but they're each sort of on their phones connected to somebody who's not there. Gia?
Yeah, for me, globalization is a good thing. At the same time, it's a very bad thing also, as Laurie have said. But it's in my country, it has really helped a lot because of the product they bring in my country, like Chinese product and all that. They are helping a lot in my country in terms of the prices and everything. Like they are really good, but at the same time, it is bad in the sense that if it happens that, for example, now it happens in Russia, like they just cut off the the Swift, the ATM card, and everything there was dominant. You know, globalization is good, at the same time it's bad. So it has really helped my country a lot.
Okay.
It has helped. Yeah, I accept the fact that, but I know at the same time it's bad. At the sense that if they just cut off the things, how are we going to survive?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Sorry.
I just want to bring up Chia. Chia's kind of an interesting example of globalization, as I understand your story, Chia, because he comes from Cameroon, but he lives in United Arab Emirates. He left Cameroon because of the economic and political situation there. There's ongoing civil war, if I understand, between the French versus the English-speaking parts of your country of Cameroon. And you moved to United Arab Emirates, where there was employment, but you know it's an ambivalent kind of experience, because I imagine, would rather be back in Cameroon with your family, but you're living in UAE, correct?
Yeah, correct. Exactly.
Okay. Nusrat?
And Nusrat is joining us from Bangladesh. And she has her own kind of climate change is a big issue there. So
okay.
Yeah. And I think globalization, I think it always brings some positive things in my life and also in my country, but also has some negative impact. But I would say mostly it's positive. If I talk about myself, I guess it's positive. I can give a lots of example of mine. For instance, learning languages, I would say the place I'm living right now and since my childhood, I think it was really impossible for me to learn English and to join with the people from across the world. So all I learned from the internet, all I followed the tips and tricks and from the videos of YouTube, the videos of other teachers from across the world, and that really helped me. And also I took the IELTS exam. So I think it was really a big thing for me, and it wasn't possible without the help of internet. So definitely it's a good thing for me. And secondly, I would say, as I am a world record holder, I'm a Guinness World Record holder. So
you are?
Firstly, I think, yeah, yeah. So I have a little bit different background. So I would say when I broke my first record, I didn't know that there was some sort of record where I could participate or I can join or I can do even this sort of activities in my life, because the place I'm living, I would say, it's not like my capital city. It's the suburb area, and also it's far from my capital city. So everything was possible by the internet. And firstly, I saw that video in the YouTube that someone is breaking that record, and then I found like, oh, maybe I can also do that because I have the skill. So then I applied immediately, and then I broke that record. So I would say everything was possible just because of internet.
Wow.
Besides, I would say, yeah, and also these days I'm also following a lot of things. I'm also doing a lot of things because I can see that other people are doing, and also I can see like, oh yes, I'm also capable. So I would say, yeah, it's a great thing in my life, and especially in my country, I would say it's also a good thing because there are lots of industries, especially I would say there's a good relation with the China in Bangladesh and China. So there are lots of Chinese companies are here, and people they're just working, and it's growing. I would say very fastly. But I would say there's some negative impact, even though it's not related to the globalization. But I would say it's the problem with our rules, or maybe with the problem of our government. It's like we are facing some I would say climate change issues and the pollution as it's growing fast due to the globalization. But we are not following any rules of environment. So that's why it's creating a very I would say, very harsh problem, and it's a big problem here in Bangladesh. And especially we have so many problems related to the climate change, like flood is still the floods are going here, and also other climate change issues. So it's a great problem, and we're not following an environmental laws, and there's lots of industries, they just throw the garbage anywhere, they are not following any rules, and there isn't any waste management system. So I would say it's also related to the globalization. And secondly, I think maybe there's another problem, like the labor market. I would say when it's like you can hire people from any other countries, like over internet or any other platforms. So that moment you can hire some person as per your choice, regarding the cost, regarding the salary. I can say some examples, like some of the freelancers, like I would say like the graphic designers or any other freelancers. So here, the people who are working in some physically, and their I would say their salary is less than the people who are working over internet, because they think like we can hire some people from the other places. So why we will hire the people from my country? So they always think like, if we can hire from the other places, maybe their services are good and their qualities are good. So I think those are the negative points. But overall, I can say maybe there's 60% positive things that globalization are bringing for 40%, I would say, negative.
Okay. I think maybe somebody earlier also said 6 to 4 was the ratio. So maybe that's what we're converging on. Zineng?
So I mean, like, it can be a sort of, like a communicated question. Because in China we are actually benefiting from globalization, because like in the last century, after the reform and open, and we really received many benefits and many help, especially technological help from Western countries, including the US and other European countries. And on your, like, we at the time flies when China is becoming stronger and stronger, well, the globalization seems to continue to benefit China, but not all of Chinese people think so. Like, some Chinese people think it's a bad thing because it's like to causing the Western ideologies into Chinese people's ideologies. You know what I mean, right? Because in China, we are different political systems from you guys. We are living different political systems. We are living communistic political system, and we are the biggest communistic country after the Soviet Union. So like, it's causing many Chinese people to refuse these Western ideologies and refuse the globalization simultaneously. But I still think globalization cannot be stopped. It's a continuous tendency, but so from my personal opinion, it's a good thing. But from maybe, but I cannot represent all of Chinese people.
Well, that's so interesting. I think there's a similarity between what you said and what I think Leroy said, that while many countries or many places, many people may welcome the economic benefits of globalization, and even there can be downsides, which we'll talk about. But if the economic interaction and now this rapid, almost free communication, if that also means that values and ideas or ideologies are sort of coming very easily from one place to another, people may feel that their culture or their values are being changed. So maybe that's something that we can come back to. All right, let me you all have very good ideas and comments, but I have to get through my 9 slides here. So let me just go here. Oh yeah, so hold on a second. So all right, so first I want to talk about to give you some sense of the scale of globalization, just what the numbers are, how big it is, and how it's been growing. And I want to also, I'm going to use this website, which I highly recommend to you. It's called ourworldindata.org. You'll see the URL in a second. It has not just data, numbers, charts, graphs, but also little articles about all sorts of questions, not just about the economy. So it's really, I've only scratched the surface of it, but it has all sorts of terrific things here. So let me, hopefully this will, wait a second. Why is this not working? Oh yeah. Loading. Okay. Our world in data. All right, so let me just first, I'm just going to show you like 2 or 3 charts now, and then I think there's one more later on.
David,
yeah.
David, you may need to close your presentation in order for us to see, because right now, if you're looking at the internet and not your presentation, all we can see is your presentation slide, the scale of globalization.
So how do I? So I close that or shrink it?
So, well, no. So go back to your PowerPoint presentation. There you go. And then now click onto your internet. So instead of going to the PowerPoint, click on the internet wherever you were, and that it should. Now,
all right. Hold on. Do you see it? Do you see it now or no?
Not yet. It looks like you tried to shrink the PowerPoint presentation, but you need to go to. It's either that, or what you can do is I can share. It's what might be simpler is you can share the link and I can show it. If
you know what I just did? Hold on, I just shared. Wait, are you still not seeing it?
We're still seeing globalization. Your PowerPoint presentation.
All right, hold on a second. I thought it was going to work, but all right, let me just see this now. Wait, I see. Okay, I think I now maybe know what I have to do.
And if not, don't worry about it. What you can do is just send me the link in the Zoom chat. If you're able to.
Are you now seeing something?
Nope. I don't think anybody can see. I'm assuming you guys tell me if you're seeing something different from globalization, the slide.
No.
Yeah, you just
okay. All right. So
do you know how to copy and paste the link of your website and then put it in the Zoom chat?
Oh, I see. Okay, hold on a second. Yep. Oh, I thought that was going to work. All right, so let me just copy and paste.
And then I'll share it out. And then I will, what I'm going to do is just close off your screen.
Jeez, wait a second. All right, so hold on. Oh, wait, here we go. Okay, so now the chat.
Okay, so chat. Put it in the Zoom chat. I'm going to open that up.
Oh, okay.
You have the Zoom chat?
Yeah, I just entered it.
Perfect. Okay.
Now, okay, so now, and you're sharing. Oh, you're going to share.
Yes. So you should be able to see you should be able to see my screen, right?
Got it. So now if you could go under their search for topic, if you could go to just type in economic growth. No, yeah, economic growth. And now hit on the left-hand side, hit the top economic growth topic, the first one, the top one. Yep. Now if you could scroll down a tiny bit. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, no, you have to go down. No, keep going. No, keep going. Yeah, if you could, wait a second. Oh, keep going a little bit. That one, okay, sorry, go back. Yep. Now you see that one where, on the left, the second one in from the left at the bottom now? Nope. Go up a tiny bit. Yep.
What's it
right
called?
There. I can't see it. It's
GDP per capita, gross domestic products.
No, it's, oh, sorry, Paul. It doesn't have a map. So sorry, if you could go down a tiny bit.
Yep.
And now, yes, that one right there. Hit that one.
Gross domestic products.
Oh, so it is that. Yes, it is that. Yep, hit that. So now what I wanted to first just show you, so first of all, does anybody know what is gross domestic product or GDP? Does anybody know what that term means?
National income
Yes.
or something?
Yes. So basically it means exactly. GDP means the income. It can be for a nation. Often it's for a nation. It can be for a smaller unit. It could be for a city, the GDP of Tokyo or New York City. It could be GDP for the world, and it's in 1 year. So it's a measure of the economic activity in a particular place for 1 year. And so if you look at this chart here, if you go on the axis at the sort of the flat axis, this shows you from 1820 to now, basically 2018. This shows you the total wealth, the total economic activity produced in different parts of the world. That's those different colors. And you see that, right, if you go back to 1820, the total economic wealth, Paul, could you click on that where it says 1820?
Mm-hmm.
No, not there, but like actually there. Yeah, you could actually, sorry, on that blue thing, you could click there.
What do you want me to do?
Clicking. Maybe just click on it, left click. Oh, you could, that's a little confusing.
Okay.
But if you clicked on where 1820 is, either on the blue thing.
Yeah, and then
try to click there. Just click on it, left click.
Oh, I see.
No.
Left click.
Well, no, sorry.
Okay.
I meant on the bar, either. Okay, it's not that important. If we looked, basically in 1820, the total world produced, I don't know, maybe $1 trillion. Oh yeah, if you click on it there, 1820, $1.21 trillion of economic activity. Okay, that's a lot of money, but for the entire world, it's not that much, right? So if we look at today, if we go to 2018, we see that it's actually more. It's over $100 trillion per year of economic activity. Okay, and this is all. It's meant to sort of account for or exclude inflation. So it's meant to be in the same, measuring this economic activity by the same dollars or the same units. And so the point here is just that especially in the last century, especially since the end of World War II, there has been an explosion of wealth created, right? And again, once you go on this website, you can sort of play around with, picking your birth year or whatever, and sort of, and so last time I think Paul was talking about modernity in relation to power, but and to interdependence, but disconnectedness, I think. But certainly another really big aspect of modernity is the tremendous growth of wealth overall. Now, that wealth is not evenly distributed, as some of you said earlier, but I would start at least with this tremendous increase in wealth. Not all of this increase of wealth is due to trade. A lot of it is due to new technology that then becomes widespread. But some of it is due to globalization and trade. If you have any questions or comments, just let me know. But Paul, if you could go back to the search bar, if you could now go to trade and globalization. And you're going to see, yeah, there you again, you see a topic. So see that topic.
This one, trade and
globalization.
globalization.
And now we're going to go to, now go down again, and we're going to look at we're going to look at two other charts. This is where I want it to be. Great. So what this chart is just about exports. What countries sell to other countries. And it is, again, on the x-axis, on the flat axis, it's the years from 1800 to now. And it is taking 1913, which is not marked there, but 1913 is set at 100%. And the chart is then going to compare before, in the years before 1913 and the years since 1913. And what is it, if you look on the left-hand side of the chart, you see these percentage signs. So basically what that means, 4,000% compared to 1913, means that today, exports are 40 times bigger than they were in 1913. 40 times. Again, using the same dollars, the dollars have been set at the same value. So a huge, not just a huge increase in wealth, that was the previous chart, but a huge increase in trade. Leroy, are you asking? Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just thinking if you could give us the overall negative and positive percentage of globalization across the world.
So sorry again, you said the overall percentage of what?
Of negative and positive effects of globalization on the world.
Well, I don't, there are no charts about that here because I think that's something that we would first have to discuss. What are the negative consequences? What are the positive? And then how would we kind of make them comparable, right? If somebody was talking before about flooding in Bangladesh and climate problems, how does that compare to the increased availability of food or shirts or, so those things that's a great question. Maybe we'll try to come back to that sort of toward the end. Is that okay? Paul,
Yeah.
Okay, Paul, one last thing here, and I see that our time is coming to an end. If you could go back to, actually go down, go down. Oh, this is what I wanted to show you. This I had never seen before. If you could, this is a map of, now here, you can, if you click on this, you can, or if you go to that plus and minus in the top left of the map, Paul, you can expand out. If you go to minus, you lose a little bit of the definition. But what this is, if you look in that little box inside the map, this is from, somebody put this together in 2012, day by day for this year. What these little dots are cargo ships moving across the world. And you can zoom in on any particular part of the world that you're interested in. But this is just amazing, right? If you see how many ships at any one time are moving across the Atlantic, across the Pacific, Indian Ocean, right? So it's just amazing, right? I mean, maybe this is, if people are old enough to remember 9/11, 2001, one thing that happened after 9/11 was they in the United States at least, and maybe in other countries, they said, okay, no more air traffic until we figure out what's going on here. So you saw these maps at any one time or before that decision was made, you saw how many airplanes were in flight, and it was just sort of mind-blowing. Thousands of I think worldwide there are like 50,000 airplanes a day, and here you see freight cargo ships. Anyway, okay, very interconnected world, very cool graphic here. All right, maybe I will, I hope you do explore this website, Our World in Data. Maybe I will just, Paul, can I go back to my PowerPoint and try to get through maybe one slide?
I'm going to stop sharing, and then you can go ahead and share. You should be able to share.
Okay, let me just, oops, sorry. Sorry, let me see here. Okay, got this, share screen. All right, so let me move this up here. Can people see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. got this, got this, got this. Oh, let me actually do, sorry. Slideshow. Okay, so let me first talk, this first slide is about some of the major benefits of globalization. The next slide, which we probably won't get to today, we'll do next time, is about some of the problems of globalization. Okay, so let me walk through this. Some things have already been touched on, I think, in your comments. All right, so I would say the most basic justification for trade, and trade, of course, can happen between two friends or within a town or within a country. Globalization is just trade globally. The most basic argument for trade is that everybody can win, everybody can gain. So this is referred to, and this is, I think, a good phrase to know, it's referred to as either win-win, a win-win situation, I win, you win, or it's referred to as positive sum, meaning, I gain 5 points and you gain 3 points, or you gain 5 points or 6 points, positive sum. An alternative to that is where I win because you lose, and that is called zero sum. Can somebody think of, and again, I'm sort of, I like to pose questions, what would be a zero sum situation or a win-lose situation?
A war?
A war, perfect. War, yes. War, or war could actually be lose-lose, right? Depending on how it turns out. If one side conquers the other side and takes land or takes people, then you might say, okay, it's win-lose, but that's sort of zero sum, or both sides could lose. So that's a great example of either zero sum or negative sum. All right, so this is the most basic argument for trade, that everybody can win.
And David, before you jump on, I think to kind of enlarge people's sense of the win-lose, slavery, which was international trade, arguably, probably, I think most people would agree, was a win-lose situation. And colonization, more debatable perhaps, but for the most part, I think the people who were colonized across the world probably thought it was more of a win-lose than a positive sum. Keep in mind that what David is saying, positive sum doesn't mean that necessarily that win-win means you're winning equally. It can mean, hey, I win $10, you get $1. It's still a win-win. You're still better off. So the question is whether or not colonization was a win-win or is a win-lose.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great points. I would say, sort of building off that first point, beyond both sides gaining or potentially gaining in material terms, in the things that they can obtain through trade, there's an idea that trade ties people and communities together in a peaceful way. So there has been this idea that trade is an alternative to conflict and war. And it was even claimed about 100 years ago or 110 years ago, somebody made the argument that basically countries that trade together a lot will not fight, will not go to war. Unfortunately, the guy who made that argument made it in 1913, and in 1914, World War I broke out between countries that traded a lot. So even today, the United States and China trade a lot and invest a lot. People have hoped that those trade ties can bind them together and help them avoid war. Unfortunately, that remains to be seen. But there is at least this hope, this idea that people who trade together can build up maybe trust, appreciating, the value of the other person, maybe even coming to appreciate them in a sort of genuine way. Begum?
No, I just it's Tom's, no comments. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let me hold on a second. All right. Related. So here's a third point that is kind of related to the first point, but a little bit different. Adam Smith You might have heard of him. He's considered sort of the founding father of free market, of capitalism, making an argument about the value of free trade. And he argued that if people specialize in what they're really good at, and then trade with other people or with other countries that have specialized in what they're good at, that each side is going to become more productive, is going to be able to produce more of whatever they're making. And so again, both sides are going to become, or both people are going to become more productive, meaning how much can they produce in an hour, let's say, and both sides by trading then will again benefit or win. Okay. Okay. So now
David, just make sure to wrap up in a couple of minutes.
No, it's good. The timing is good. Okay. So now I want to turn to the question. Okay, if this is true, and we can discuss it. Is there any justification for trade on a global basis, the biggest possible scale of trade, the biggest possible arena of trade? And so I would say there are two arguments for globalization. One comes from Adam Smith. Adam Smith's idea was the bigger the market, the more people can specialize, and hence the more they can be productive. So for example, if you were imagining a village of, let's say, 200 people, and they only interacted with each other, maybe in that village of 200 people, one person could be a doctor, right? And would have to be a generalist, would have to be a doctor for all sorts of things. You probably could not afford in a village of 200 people to have an eye specialist. I don't think you could have a second doctor who's an eye specialist. If you had a town or a city of, let's say, 10,000 people, maybe you could have a few doctors, and maybe some of those doctors could specialize. If you have a city or a country or a world that is interacting, you can now have people who specialize in very particular problems, vision problems, or ophthalmology specialists, right? And so the bigger the market, the more you can have people specializing, the more value, in a sense, they can create. So that's Adam Smith's first argument. A second argument, and I think this is the last thing that I'll say, is this idea, and this is also, I would say, a good phrase or concept to learn, economies of scale. Have any of you heard that? Economies of scale? Anybody know what that means? So economies of scale basically means that if you have to invest a lot, let's say in a factory, right, to produce Teslas or microchips, you are not going to invest $10 billion in a factory, which is what a modern semiconductor factory costs, or even $20 billion. You're not going to invest $20 billion in a factory if you can only sell to a city of 8 million people. Those 8 million people are not going to be able to buy enough semiconductors, microchips, to make your investment worthwhile. You're only going to invest in a semiconductor factory if you can sell to the entire world, because you've got to sort of spread out your costs of that factory. Does that make sense? Or?
Yep.
All right, so maybe I'll wrap up there. There are more slides, which I'll have to figure out how to do that in 30 minutes next time. But anyway, I hope you got something out of this, and it was nice interacting with you around the world.
Fantastic. David, I'm going to try to see if I view in options. Let me see here if I can stop the participant sharing. There you go. Great. So David, thank you for giving us some perspective on globalization. Obviously, so to bring this back in the context of family diplomacy, and why the heck are we learning about globalization if we're trying to develop ourselves as family diplomats? Well, we have to be aware of this broader context, right, of globalization, because it has major impacts not just on our lives, but on our interactions and our ability to exercise power as family diplomats. And so understanding some basics about globalization is going to help us understand the ways in which the world is impacting our families, right? And so David, as a kind of specialist, speaking of specialists and globalization, as somebody who specializes in globalization, is here to give us kind of some somewhat deeper understanding of globalization. You guys are clearly, from your comments, you're aware of globalization, and in some cases, like Nusrat in Bangladesh, who is a Guinness Book world record holder. She's an example of globalization and the fact that she's impacted disproportionately. She and those are Sammy and others from Pakistan are disproportionately impacted by climate change. Those are examples of globalization. So a lot of us are affected by globalization in very direct ways. On a daily basis, and sometimes in dangerous ways on an extraordinary basis. So we have to be aware of these things in order to be able to advocate effectively as family diplomats, right? Okay, so next week, we are going to be focusing, it's the last actual week of presentations and discussion. And we are going to be focusing, David is going to finish up on globalization. I'm going to talk about citizen diplomacy a little bit. And then we have to do a post survey to determine how much you guys have learned. And so we'll be doing that at the tail end of the session next week. It's the same survey that we did at the start, because if you might remember, we're trying to compare your pre-surveys and your post-survey answers, particularly on this essay question. So we're looking forward to seeing what you guys have learned over the last, I think it's been 6 weeks, essentially, learning about families, learning about globalization, about power, and citizen diplomacy. Afterwards, the show really is about you guys. The show becomes less about learning some facts about the world and more about your stories. So starting August 27th, we want to hear your family stories. Some of you are returning, like Sammy and Mo and Leroy and Nusrat and Justice, et cetera, and so forth. You guys are returning to us. We want you to develop either new stories or continue the stories that you were previously telling and develop them and practice them further. For the rest of you, we're going to be asking you to think about what kind of story you want to be telling about your family or a family that you know, okay, that's been impacted by some issue that affects lots of people across the world. Or that affects some people across the world. It doesn't have to necessarily be lots of people. So we'll talk more about that. You guys you'll have lots of opportunity, essentially from August 27th to October, I think it's late October, mid to late October. You will have a chance to craft your story, to practice your story with us. And then ultimately you're going to be performing it. And we're going to be, again, comparing your performances before and after. So at the start, August 27th, and at the end, to see how your storytelling abilities have improved. Any questions? Quickly. You can also ask questions in the Facebook chat as well. Okay, if nobody's got questions, thank you everybody for your, I want to particularly kind of like flag a number of people here have been really loyal and participatory. Zineng, thank you for your initiative with this volunteer group, but also thank you for being here and highly participatory. Begum has been great from Turkey. Mohammed, who's joining us from Cyprus, but is a refugee from Afghanistan. Juliana, you've been quietly kind of participating in I see in the Zoom chat. It's great to see you, and you've been really participating faithfully. Nusrat, when you're able to and when you don't have connection issues. Leroy, it's been great to have you participate every week from Liberia. Sammy, when you've been able to. Justice, I know that you've had some connection issues, as well as Abdul. Chia, it's been fantastic getting to know you. a little bit as we go, and Joshua and Ali and Fode, likewise, great to get to know you guys. So we look forward to seeing you next week, and next Sunday, same time, same Zoom. All right, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
See you then.
Bye. Thanks, David. Bye.
Sure.